So why online Dems hate Jimmy Dore with Glenn Greenwald?
We're here with Glenn Greenwald, big shot. Now, ever since the hysteria over Russiagate, there's been a culture developing that calls for internet censorship. And we saw figures on the left calling for censorship, pleading for the unaccountable authority of faceless Silicon Valley employees to protect us from our own thoughts and the thoughts of others. And now the left is being suppressed on Facebook and other platforms. What is it going to take, Glenn, for the left to understand that we can't let Silicon Valley pick and choose who gets free speech or not?
What does he mean can't let? Like you can okay, oh my this stuff isn't a light switch. You can be for Nazis getting deplatformed and also be against other people being deplatformed. The pressure the public puts on these corporations is so important. How we decide to wield that public pressure is a big deal because we don't have any checks through government to stop them from censoring people who shouldn't be censored. So we should pressure these corporations to censor Nazis because that is 100% the good thing to do for humanity, for every aspect of life and politics. And if we ever want to achieve progressivism, we cannot allow reactionary revolutionary forces to rise up in America. That is undisputed. But their idea is that if you support Nazis getting deplatformed, then you're going to give these big corporations the power to then censor progressives, when in reality, you know, what are we going to be able to do through government to prevent them from censoring people? If it did come to that, what are we going to do through government? If you truly believe this is such a big problem, your number one goal should be getting political power for progressives. But again, Greenwald and Jimmy Dore don't even care about that. They care about purity politics and whatever their principles are ascribed to be. So they're going to complain about this for 20 minutes with no real solutions, no real world practical ways to implement what they're talking about.
What's really going on,
And
Jimmy?
not only is it incredibly dangerous to platform Nazis, and we know what happens when that influence is able to spread, what kind of conspiracy groups spread. We understand what's happening right now with QAnon and how a lot of QAnon people are actually feeling disenfranchised because their big thing fell apart. So now white supremacist groups are using this Donald Trump failure to scoop up all of these really weak, these really frail, these really insecure QAnon former followers. So this is what happens if this information is allowed to spread really far. These are really bad repercussions. And politically, it makes sense for progressive leaders to say we want to get these people off of these platforms, even from the sense of gaining political power. Because if you're a progressive leader, you're not going to come out and say, my number one issue is making sure the Nazis have a chance to speak right after our literal nation's capital was stormed by insurrectionists, that were egged on by this same exact kind of disinformation and misinformation that leads to these chaotic, wannabe revolutionary, reactionary forces forming in America. These implications go much further than they want to let on here, but I want to know what their actual solutions are. Is this a thing they're just going to cry about? They're going to complain that everybody wants to censor everybody. Or do they have practical solutions to fix the problem? How do we deal with major media corporations, 5 corporations owning everything we read, everything we hear, everything we watch, every platform we communicate on? How can we fix that? How are we going to get the political power to affect that change? And they don't show any interest in working through actual government to try and get this stuff done. They show no interest in trying to wage political power in general. So what is the goal of this rhetoric? Is it to help something, or is it just to be a virtue signaler?
This whole thing with GameStop, I think, is really revealing something interesting because to me, it's one of the most serious threats to Wall Street hegemony in years. It's not going to take down Wall Street. I don't want to overstate it.
Daria, you can't just do that because what's the quote? Whenever you lie about something on social media, it's going to travel 5,000 times further than any type of healing force is going to. And in a place right now where we are in our country of panic and disenfranchisement, it's really easy for these conspiratorial thoughts to take over huge masses of people. What you are suggesting sounds great, and I do agree with it in principle, but it's simply it's not possible. I wish it was possible that we can get to every person and educate them on why Nazism is wrong. But if that was true, if that was the case, if that was possible, we wouldn't have the history we've seen with fascist forces rising up. It's way too difficult to do that because these ideas spread very quickly. The ideas of liberalism are much harder to get across than the ideas of nationalism, because nationalism is all about anger, all about fear, all about emotion, all about reactionary tendencies. Liberalism versus nationalism is about structure, it's about governing, it's about a complicated process of keeping a civilization set into a certain order.
But it has really fucked with their model. It has caused serious panic. They don't know what to do. They've taken all kinds of steps and said all sorts of things that they don't like to do or say because it pulls the mask down. It shows how much they cheat. They're panicked over what's going on. And it is so interesting to me that you have this huge institutional left, really well-funded, major media outlets like the Young Turks and this whole Justice Democrats industry founded by foundations, these activist groups, and now you have all these elected officials.
He's trying to make it sound like a big media conglomerate, like the Justice Dems and Young Turks. Do you understand they barely have any foothold in media in general? I don't know what he thinks.
Officials in Congress and state houses, all part of the left, and this huge blow against Wall Street had nothing to do with them. They weren't a participant in it in any way. It came from these like 4chan trolls who, to the extent they have politics at all, sure as hell has nothing to do with liberal cultural pieties or even left-wing political orthodoxies. They're just like angry at the system and they want to fuck with it and burn it down. And you have the left who doesn't know how to confront real power centers. They don't want to confront the CIA or the Pentagon or Wall Street or Silicon Valley. So they content themselves with like symbolic.
Before you can influence those 4 things, and by the way, focusing as your #1 goal, your first step on CIA and Silicon Valley is very misguided. You need to accomplish real political power first. If progressives can't win state house races, how are they going to be able to influence what freaking Silicon Valley does? What do you expect the squad to do with their 4 people in Congress? Like, this is so, like, it's like a cartoonish way to view politics.
Gestures about pulling down statues from the Capitol or going on crusades about gender pronouns or censorship that actually is being carried out by corporations and will eventually be turned against them.
And of course, they don't care about social issues. They just made fun of like being mad about statues being pulled down and, you know, just gender pronouns. Who cares about that stuff? Not a big deal.
Or pretending like the Boogaloo Boys or the Proud Boys are the real fascist threat in the United States and not some clownish joke sideshow that real power centers hate just as they do. This huge institutional.
The powerful people are afraid of the Boogaloo Boys.
Left has almost no ability to put fear in the heart of ruling class.
We have to join with them and destroy the entire government. That's another thing too. They are anti-liberalism. They're illiberal. So they don't care about any system of a set like government. They don't understand for like Medicare for all to be achieved, and I don't even hear Glenn Greenwald talk about systemic fixes for domestic policy issues. But for Medicare for all to be achieved, for the Green New Deal to be achieved, for all of this stuff to be possible, you need a society organized in a very strong and structured way. Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald don't care about that. That's why they get along so well with the Proud Boys and with Boogaloo Boys, because those are also 2 groups who don't care about any, you know, about this current system, about this current society. Without this government, this shit isn't possible. Without a strong government owned by the people, ran by the people, that works, you know, it's just like I said before, if you view politics in a cartoonish way, you think every radical force in America is going to come together arm in arm and be able to charge on the Capitol and take over the government or something. I don't understand like what their brain goes to, but they're just radicals in the truest sense of being fringe. Not even radical in thought, but radical in practice, radical in the sense where they can never actually practically influence politics in a good way whatsoever. These are the people all throughout history that have caused fascists to take over because they think populism is all that matters. They think being anti-liberal is all that matters. They care about being anti-liberal than they care about actual progress. Vector, thank you for the $5 super chat. Never watch Spice and Wolf. Oh, yes.
Elite. And I think it's so interesting that this real threat to Wall Street is coming from a group of people who most certainly don't identify with that left at all.
Yes, we're going to get into that more. It's amazing what's happening. It's the
and even if they got rid of the government or whatever, what do they think is going to happen after they band together in this country, in this extremely far right leaning country? This country is definitely more fascistic leaning. In this country, what's going to happen to all the people of color, to all the LGBT people after the government comes down, to all these disenfranchised groups? What do they think happens after this process? All throughout history, this has not gone well.
The system is rigged. The game is up, and everybody sees it now. But I wanted to, before, because we have
Government
so much
bad.
to talk about, but
We
I wanted to
agree.
get your thoughts on something, because in recent weeks, the online left has been fixating on me, and half the attention is animated by I would say 90% of it is animated by bad faith actors, but there's something else going on. The obsession with me, I think, Len, shows the directionless the left is in right now. There's no larger political project for people to organize around, and there's no leadership.
You're not that important. People on Twitter know about you because you're incredibly dangerous, and your ideology all throughout history has gotten people on the left killed. That's the only reason we talk about you. Because you do, for all your amazing flaws, you have a big following as a result.
Coming from figures like Bernie Sanders or AOC or the Squad. None. There's nothing that they have us focused on to work towards right now. Nothing except censoring our political opponents.
Yes, we don't trust electoral politics, but at the same time, all of our hope is in electoral politics. Like, does Jimmy Dore ever talk about what we can do to our local courthouses, our local city councils, our state houses, our state senates? Does he ever talk about that, or is he waiting for like Bernie Sanders to come and hold the entire movement's hands? Is that what Jimmy Dore wants? You know, all politics is electoral, I guess now. Like, me voting for Joe Biden was simply a pathway to get to a point where progressives can do things like direct action and outside politics. I don't believe that much that electoral politics is actually going to create change, but I think it's necessary to keep things in a structured way that we can actually organize with and progress with. That's why I voted for Joe Biden. I don't believe in electoralism to the extent like they do. They are the true people, Jimmy Dore and all these, and Nico House and all these people. They are the people who put too much into electoralism and think the entire government was going to change because Bernie Sanders was going to become president. They are the people who are unrealistic. They are the people who are idealistic. Those are the people right here on this screen that think all politics happens at the top. That's not how change ever works, especially not progressive change.
And there's still lingering resentment against me for my force the vote strategy, not because of the merit.
My anti-billionaire existence? It depends. Like, if we lived in a society that wasn't direct, unregulated capitalism, being a billionaire wouldn't be as big of an issue because money wouldn't mean power. The big issue right now with billionaires is that their wealth directly translates to power. If they wanted to have a system where there's a market economy and somebody does have a great invention and somehow becomes rich, luckily, it doesn't all need to be perfect. That billionaire, I don't think there should be an effort to get rid of that person. I think the issue is leveling out power structures, especially since, I mean, eventually the power of the dollar, $1 billion is going to be less than it was before. But in general, like $200 billion, $250 billion, that's what I'm worried about. If you make $1 billion, that's not even that big of an issue right now when it comes to political power. But yeah, I think in general, we need to take away the corruption in government. And as long as billionaires don't have power to own this society, I don't think there's that much of a reason to get rid of them completely.
And there's still lingering resentment against me for my force the vote strategy, not because of the merits of it, but because it exposed progressives in power that they won't challenge the Democratic Party leadership. And the people who we elected and thought would be an insurgents force just turned into loyal Democrats. It turns out the Justice Democrats are just Democrats. So
the people we sent in to take over the Democratic Party are actually trying to take over the Democratic Party and get political power. How dare they?
Do you believe that the left will simply turn into the Democratic Party apologists during the entire Biden era?
Yes, I do.
I am upset with Bernie, though, when he, like right now, I don't like how he's going along with the Joe Biden $1,400 more thing. It should be $2,000 stimulus checks. That's what they said from the start. That's what it should be. It's a really dumb fumble to make. I am kind of upset Bernie Sanders isn't pushing back on that, but we could talk about that later.
So, first of all, this obsession with you, I don't mean with your strategy, but with you personally. There's like an entire, I mean, I think that like,
I said, I literally just said having $200 billion is bad for democracy. That's what I said. I said it is bad for democracy. Did you not listen? Like, that's what I'm worried about. I said if somebody makes $1 billion, I don't care. That's not that much money. $1 billion in the grand scheme of political power and owning a government isn't that much money. $200 billion is. I don't know. I mean, class reductionists usually can't understand speech very well, so.
I don't mean with your strategy, but with you personally. There's like an entire, I mean, I think that like they're going to create a Pulitzer Prize soon called Pulitzer Prize for Excellence in Commentary on James Dore. It's like the entire fucking industry. Like a third of the left media talks about you.
Yeah, I agree. Blackfaced America. Yeah, I agree. Things are more important to make sure our lives are better. And power structures are more orderly set. I don't care about like the idea. I feel like the idea of hating billionaires as your #1 political ideology can be useful. But it shouldn't be the main goal. Like, yes, we need to take power from the most powerful and give it to the least powerful. But it shouldn't be just like we hate rich people because of wealth. And I feel like focusing on materialism is really a hindrance to progressivism as well. Like having a nice car and all that stuff, those people that have nice material objects aren't really what we're talking about when we're talking about like evening out the playing field. Evening out the playing field means taking away from the owners of our society. I feel like we're cutting out a large section of people that could be supporting us because we make it seem like when we're against billionaires that we're against people making $400,000 in the suburbs. Although we want to tax them a little bit more to help societal programs, they shouldn't be our enemy. We're talking about like people who literally corrupt our system and make it impossible to truly help people. By the way, thank you for checking out the stream. Please drop a like and add a subscribe button. Please consider. Yes.
You personally, constantly, all the time. It reminds me a lot, in 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yeah, Don. Yeah, focus on a systemic critique, not all the time how much you hate a billionaire. But it can be effective to say like Jeff Bezos makes 80,500,000 whatever times more dollars than you. That might help people get along with progressive policies.
It's about you personally, constantly, all the time. It reminds me a lot, in 2010, 2011, 2012, when WikiLeaks pioneered this really groundbreaking model of how secrets of the most powerful entities on the planet can be leaked and published. It found a major vulnerability in actual power. It was incredibly innovating and inspiring and exciting and important. And within a short period of time, all anyone wanted to talk about was that Julian Assange was an asshole, that he had like an abrasive personality, that, as though like the issue was, do you want to date him? And it just became like, no, that guy's a jerk. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, he is a jerk. Julian's a jerk in like a lot of ways, that I can be.
But if you're only selectively releasing information to hurt liberalism, I don't know, like, how I can feel about your actions in this. Like, if you're only helping the far right groups,
you're definitely an asshole. Like,
if you really care about leaking this stuff, leak all of it from both sides. Why do you only leak it to own the libs? If you're Assange. But yeah, Erica, I just don't like. That shouldn't be our biggest focus. We should be helping, if we can help people without taking back that wealth. I think that's more important overall. Making sure we get people help. If we live in a society that isn't perfectly equal, I want to make it as equal as possible. And those power structures are what I really am concerned about. Even if it is like stolen from people, we're never going to be able to heal that deficit. As sad as it is, we're going to have to just focus on like. Although there may always be a class that is untouchable, we need to make sure everyone at the bottom is taken care of. Because that might be what it takes. We might have to convince, and this is kind of I don't know if this is a lib take, but we have to sort of get the ruling class okay with stuff like MMT. Like stockbrokers don't have an issue. Wall Street doesn't have that much of an issue with MMT, for example. They're okay with giving large amounts of money to, or spending large amounts of money. They actually really like that idea. If we could technically have a society with perfect healthcare and childcare and all that stuff, even with the ruling class, and you could say that's impossible, but in a just hypothetically, if you could do that, I'd be fine with it. Just hypothetically.
These things are not in dispute, but they're also totally irrelevant, right? They're completely irrelevant. The reason that you're effective is the same reason that they consider
Yes, I know it's through exploitation, but the world isn't going to be perfect.
An asshole because you raise your voice, you care about things, you want to be heard. You think that somebody could have done what Julian did, which is fuck so hard with the CIA and the military?
I think that should be the goal,
but powerful corporations on earth. If he was just like a nice guy who kind of was just like a retiring personality, no, they're inextricably linked. But this is what I was saying just a minute ago in that last answer.
I don't know. The billionaire class finds ways to stay, no matter what kind of revolution happens. Especially now with the levels of militarization we are facing. I don't know if there's ever going to be a way to like bring down the billionaire class, but there is going to be a way. There will be a way to democratize things.
Because if you're on the left and you have two choices, one is to try and think about how to fuck with Wall Street like that Reddit group just did, or to blow holes open in the walls of the NSA or the CIA like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange did, or try and take down the monopoly power of Silicon Valley like a lot of
Well, yeah, that's my political model. It's push for the ideal, but act pragmatically. That's sort of my like slogan to myself. Push for the ideal, but act pragmatically and help people, basically.
Hardworking people are doing who care about those issues, including your good friend Matt Stoller. That's one way you can go. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of risk. It's very difficult to figure out how to do that. Or you can just like devote yourself to like internet gossip and bullshit chatter and like trivial personality disputes. That is super easy. And it's also profitable. People love to like hate. You stimulate hatred. Fuck Jimmy Dore.
This is Jimmy Dore.
Look
He
what
does
said. He put
this.
this guy on his
This
show.
is what he
What does
does.
that have to do with politics? You claim that you're interested in the working class. You claim you're interested in people's lack
We
of
are
healthcare
victims.
coverage, in people's inability to get jobs, to live, they have to live at home, their community.
You claim they're interested. You claim you're interested in helping people get healthcare, but you want to destroy the entire government because you're just anti-liberal. What?
Are ravaged by joblessness and and you're talking about Jimmy fucking Dore and whether or not he's a good guy or whether or not you like him instead of the strategy that he.
That's a straw man too, dude. Like every single time Jimmy Dore's brought up, they bring up his personality. They bring it up as a straw man. Whenever there's a big issue with his ideology and how harmful it really is, they say, "Oh, you just don't like Jimmy Dore's personality." They are the people that bring it up. Like, we don't bring it up if we talk about it. Like, we're talking about the actual
that caused
ideas.
a huge debate about how to bring. If you're doing that, you are an absolute and complete and total coward and a fraud. You're doing that because you need to fill your YouTube shows and your columns and your
This
Twitter
is
feeds with
him.
content that
This is
keeps people
Dore.
interested. But like you're stimulating the most primitive, primal emotions of people that are totally easy to
That's
stimulate.
literally
that are
that's
completely
literally what Jimmy Dore does. The primitive emotions of people, just playing off of like just yell at them.
meaningless to stimulate. You know that you have no ability to do real activism.
Dude, the reason socialism doesn't work is because every time there's a socialist government, it gets toppled. I could play that game too. Just kidding. JK. Haha.
Put real fear into the hearts of actual ruling class elites. And I find it so revealing. It doesn't mean that every one of their critiques of you is false. I just don't give a
Just
shit.
kidding.
I
Don't
give a
get
shit
don't get
about your
offended.
personality. I don't want to debate that with you. I'm more interested in what you can contribute to these political aims, these political goals, these things that we're all claiming we're about, but they're not about that, Jimmy. They don't have any ability to do it. Now, the other thing about it is I just want to quickly comment on. You tell me, what is the difference between that left and the Nancy Pelosi-led, Chuck Schumer-led Democratic Party? I want to know what the difference is. I don't see any fucking differences. And they know that there's no differences. They spent the last year of their lives marching behind Bernie Sanders, who in turn was marching behind Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And you know what's going to happen in about 2 to 3 weeks? Bernie Sanders is going to shepherd the nomination through his committee, the budget committee, of a woman who has spent the last 5 years calling him and his followers continuously in the most bad faith way racist and misogynist and bigot.
Who cares? I don't care if somebody's mean. That shouldn't even be in consideration. Like, I understand politics is a dirty sport. Like, we shouldn't be surprised when like politics gets dirty. Like, is that Neera Tanden they're talking about? Like, she's terrible for other reasons other than the Bernie stuff. Like, we have to stop acting like politics is going to be like a clean sport. Like, whenever we bring up there's advertising against our policy, or this corporate media person said something bad about Bernie, stop crying about it. Yes, that is the playing field. It's not worth complaining about it all the time. How do we beat it now? Let's beat it. Like, this is going to happen. They're going to shit talk progressivism because it hurts their power. But like, how do we beat it now? Like, we spent a lot of time complaining about this shit.
He's going to say, my friend Neera Tanden, this is not a time for past grievances. We have too much work to do. I'm really proud to call you my friend. I think you're going to do a great job. He's going to be the most cuck motherfucker, even more so than he already is, in the entire universe. And it's just going to show those people even more that all you are warriors for the Democratic Party. Let me just give you one example. This week has been like the most amazing week of having the left and the right unite against Wall Street. Almost everybody across the spectrum supports what those Redditors are doing and is thrilled to see these hedge fund leeches suffering. And it created a major opportunity to regulate, to legislate, to reform. And Ted Cruz, whatever you think of him, reached out by saying, I agree with AOC about this. So that was an opportunity for right and left to join together to do something that supposedly her main reason for existing as a political figure, which is fighting income inequality, and instead she turns around and says, fuck you, I don't want to work with you. You guys got me murdered. You're a white supremacist. And suddenly the two camps divide again, and over here you have the red team, and over here you have the blue team. Cheers.
Hot take, I do think you shouldn't work with white supremacists. Like, open ones that really, let them get power. Other Republicans that don't do that, like more just like neocon Republicans, are different. But like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, working with them, it's weird, because if there's going to be like a huge increase, like if there's going to be something passed that's really good to help people, sure, like Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley working together on $1,200 checks. That is different than like Ted Cruz and AOC coming together on this Wall Street thing, especially since Ted Cruz's wife is a Goldman Sachs higher up. Like, Ted Cruz is completely lying about caring about this topic. And we shouldn't be legitimizing Ted Cruz as an actual politician who cares about fixing anything just because he agrees with AOC on one issue or is pretending to. But like I said, if it's going to help people directly, like Bernie working with Hawley, that's a little bit different. But on this issue, hell no. Especially after the Capitol thing, like you shouldn't be criticizing AOC for that because it would be dumb to work with him. I was a little bit skeptical when I saw her tweet back at Ted Cruz. When Ted Cruz said, "I'll work with you to do this Wall Street investigation," and she said, "I don't want to work with you because you almost got me killed." I was like, I looked at it first. I'm like, this might not be a good look. But the more I thought about it, I understood.
Like,
if working with white supremacists will help people of color, then it's worth it. If you can get me any instance in American history where that has gone well,
morons at a fucking high school football game again because she ruined that movement because all she wants to do is attack Republicans.
Yeah, like if Rand Paul put up to a vote, like I literally want to end the Yemen stuff, then yeah, support that. But something like this, like the Wall Street thing, which is unnecessary to work together, why would she? Like this Wall Street thing is so obscure. It's not going to help anybody directly right now.
And fortify the Democratic Party. That is what the left has become, and they know it. And that's why all that's left for them to do is do things like talk about.
What do I say to people who say that the M4A co-sponsor list is not really does not really matter because not all co-sponsors genuinely support it? The only way to hold their feet to the fire is to get it to a point where Medicare for All can realistically pass, or you do like a stripped down version of Medicare for All and call it a public option. You could test it that way. It needs to be able to actually pass to test them, because if it can't actually pass, then those same people can just put a symbolic vote up. I think there's going to be a floor vote for Medicare for All in 2021 from the reports I've seen. So those co-sponsors that don't actually support Medicare for All can still vote for it. They're still going to vote for it. But yeah.
About your personality and occasionally mine.
It is stunning to see AOC turn into Adam Schiff. It is stunning to me to see her just totally
AOC became Adam Schiff.
Iron. It started for me at the CARES Act, so last March, when she blamed the Republicans for the CARES Act instead of her own leadership who had just negotiated that bill. And so when everybody was making a big deal how she flapped her arms, but she was only flapping her arms and pointing her finger at the Republicans, and now here we are again. And when she's supposed to, we elected her to oppose Nancy Pelosi, she won't.
Here's my favorite thing. A scorpion and a frog meet on the bank of a stream. The scorpion asks the frog to carry him across on its back. The frog says, "How do you know? Or how do I know you won't sting me?" The scorpion says, "Because if I sting you while you cross the stream, I surely will drown." I surely will drown as well. The frog is satisfied and they set out. But in midstream, the scorpion stings the frog. The frog feels the onset of the why am I not being able to say this word? He gets paralyzed. Starts to sink. I'm having a brain fart. But I know what the hell. Okay, don't listen to me politically. I'm too stupid. Yeah, but you know the story. It's always in their nature to bring us down. No matter if we work together or whatever, they're always in the end going to bring us down. Especially in America, which is by far a right-leaning country, a more fascist-tending country. And throughout history, if we look at Italy, if we look in Germany, always, whenever there's going to be a left-wing revolution, if they can, the ruling class makes sure it falls on the right. So the ruling class is on the right. If you look at the police state, they're on the right. The military, they're on the right. People in America who are on the right are also more heavily armed. Working with them is a really bad idea. To tear down government, too, which we need a good government owned and a good government ran by the people to get what we want done. It would just be, not good.
Do it. And now when the time comes to actually stick it to Wall Street, she says no. And instead of doing that, she'd rather prop up in a most disingenuous way the Democratic Party. So she's there. The reason why she wouldn't...
Hedge funders are the frog and the scorpion is GME holders, yeah.
They wouldn't do force the vote was because it would have been injurious to the Democrats in the House who were against Medicare for All and would vote against it. So Nancy Pelosi said you can't do it, so they didn't. And so it's just stunning to me to see what is just manifest to everybody. And it's I've said this for years, Glenn, the United States is a country of adult children of alcoholic. They don't get mad at the person screwing you, right? Like the Justice Democrats who aren't doing what they said they would do and oppose Nancy Pelosi to get anything. They're not mad at that. They get mad at the person who points out that they're not doing what they said they would. And that's what adult children of alcoholics do. I know that very well.
What?
So,
I know that very well.
We're left in, and it's just amazing.
You have some personal problems you want to talk about, Jimmy?
that I could become some kind of literally I'm fucking a comedian in my garage in Pasadena.
Aw,
And it
he's so
just goes to
sad.
show you the bankruptness of those elected officials, the Justice Democrats, AOC, all of them, that I
Dude, if an idiot has a big microphone, you have to deal with it.
could have
okay?
this kind of impact is because they are completely sellouts.
Is there a
selling out.
dark mode for YouTube, by the way? If I go into settings, can I find a dark mode? That'd be pretty dope if I can have a dark mode for this. Settings. What would it be? Advanced? No. Billing? Privacy? Working with a white supremacist. Sure, I'll work with Democrats. Yeah, that makes sense. It does make sense to work with them, with Democrats. How do I find dark mode on YouTube? Where is it at? Somebody tell me. Oh no.
We're here with Glenn Greenwald, big shot. For me, at the CARES Act, so Justice Democrats, AOC, all of them, that I could have this kind of impact is because they are completely selling out their own campaigns, their own campaign workers, and everybody on the left. Go ahead,
Appearance?
say whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, the person who should have been leading that campaign was not Jimmy Dore. It should have been AOC.
Yes.
As you said, the reason it ended up
Yo,
being
that
you
looks
is because
pretty
it
dope
wasn't
now.
them. It should have been Justice Democrats. It should have been DSA. None of them do it because they're just
Which one looks better? Does dark mode look better on stream, or does white mode look better, or light mode?
of the Democratic Party. Look, I think, if you think about the excitement that came from AOC's election, let's remember she did not unseat a Republican incumbent.
Right.
She unseated a Democratic incumbent, a Democratic incumbent who was extremely loyal to the Democrat, who was one of Nancy Pelosi's favorite members of Congress, who would have been saying all the same stuff that she's saying now about the Republican insurrection, about white supremacy. Every last word that she utters would have come out of the mouth of Joe Crowley
White
with complete
mode.
comfort, except to the extent that he really
White.
didn't speak much. He just did,
White mode is what I go into when I rap. That's white mode.
exercise power in back rooms, but he would have been totally comfortable with all of her messaging. So the thing that amazed me was they humiliated AOC about a month ago, notwithstanding what a good soldier she is. They hate her. They hate her so much. They hate the fact that she talks about primary challenges against them without actually confronting them to their face. I've heard members of Congress talk about her, and they really don't like her, the Democratic members. And they humiliated her. She wanted to be on this committee, this very powerful committee. The House leadership refused to back her for it. They put her against...
You know why they refused to back her? Because she endorsed 500 primary challengers across the country, and that is what's called using Tom McDonald mode. Yep. But that's what political power is. She used political power in that sense, and you spend political power. It's like a form of currency in a sense, and she endorsed people with that political power. She didn't have enough to get her across to a committee seat because she's going against big money interests as well. So if you're going to be a progressive against the big money, you're going to be against corporate media, you're going to be against the leaders of the party, and you're going to be primarying corporate Democrats across the country, you're going to use political power. That's why she didn't get on the committee. And by the way, she tried getting on at the last second. So
another member from New York, one who is a known right-wing Democrat who opposed Nancy
F4.
Pelosi from the right in 2018 when AOC was a good soldier and voted for her. And they chose that
good soldier.
right-wing anti-Pelosi member
Yep.
over AOC by a vote of 45 to 12. They
Yep.
just booted her ass right off that fucking committee.
Yep.
Said, we don't
she was
fucking
never on it.
not putting you on this committee. Fuck you. And they talked and they said, I'm going to vote for the member who's actually loyal to the Democratic Party and who, doesn't talk about...
Yep, that's how politics works. Yep. She goes against the party and endorses other people, progressives against corporate Democrats, and they get mad about it. That's how politics works. Yep.
primary challenges. So I thought, okay.
I'm glad Glenn Greenwald is showing some understanding of the world a little bit now.
The next day, she's going to wake up and she's going to be like, you know what? I remember the Democratic Party hates me and I'm here to battle with them, not just to fucking talk about Ted Cruz. Any Democrat could do that.
I'm going to title this segment on YouTube when I post it Dumber and Dumber. I think that's a good one. Maybe I'll Photoshop Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore onto the faces of Jim Carrey and that other guy.
And she just started tweeting, which is where she lives, on Twitter. And it was it never happened. I don't think she once mentioned it. She just went right back to the Republicans are terrible. It's they just fucking spit right in your face, the Democratic Party did, and you're going to go back to work for them? Messaging, not even a half of a day, protesting what was just done to you.
So we need to work with white supremacists because they also hate libs, but we cannot work with Democrats because they were mean to us. Literally, that's what Glenn Greenwald is saying right now.
Go check her Twitter feed. Somebody go do this and let me know how many of her tweets or interviews contain a word that could not have come out of Joe Crowley's mouth or Chuck Schumer's or Nancy Pelosi. What is it that she's saying? The only thing she does is occasionally escalate her rhetoric.
Oh my God, dude. I saw that thing she got through that paid for funeral costs for people around the country, which was $2 billion. And people commented on it, who cares? This isn't for Medicare for all. You know how expensive funerals are, especially during this pandemic? Like, that's a big deal. What she does in government is a big deal. Just because Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore think all politics is Medicare for all and the Green New Deal, if you were ever in politics, if you ever organized, or if you ever paid attention, local politics, state politics, that shit matters a lot. And we're seeing the repercussions right now of not having good control of state politics with vaccine distribution and stuff like that. They are responsible for a lot of this because the federal government gave no plan, and they in some instances, the federal government doesn't have the power to give out a plan for the entire country and every state to follow. So these other issues matter a lot. What she does in her own district matters a lot.
About Republicans.
Yes.
She'll be like, oh, you're fascist, you're Nazis. She like use the words that like, that's zero. That's nothing. That's just being an extra Democrat.
Yeah, exactly. Funerals is a lot of freaking debt, dude.
That's right. That's right. And
can I just make one more point, Jimmy? Can I just make one more point?
No.
Yes, I have to. Yes, shut up, Jimmy. I wasn't really asking. Here's the thing. I do want to say one thing. Like, I do believe that like AOC was genuinely rattled by what happened at the Capitol. She is the target of right-wing media in a pretty demonizing way. I'm sure it was like unsettling to have these mobs running through the Capitol. You have no idea if there are and what their intentions are. I'm sure that was scary.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm gonna post a segment I did yesterday on that topic of the
She made
Medicare
it
for all
through
vote.
completely unscathed, not even tiny little bruise on her body. Every other member of Congress in the Democratic caucus, including Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and others, are equally demonized, and they're fucking over it. They got over it. If you want to
didn't get over it. What, like, just how much you decide to make public about it is what's different. They just got over it.
Member of Congress.
And by the way, AOC, being the most popular politician, one of the most popular on the planet, gets a lot more of a target on her back than the other members of the squad do. Obviously, Ilhan Omar, because she's a woman of color and Muslim as well. She gets a lot. But AOC, just from scale, she gets a lot added onto that. And in general, you shouldn't be gatekeeping how people can grieve after something like that.
Constantly center your own like lived experiences. You're not there to like center yourself in every drama. If you
cares about your lived experiences, God, he's such a little drama queen baby, dude. Like, come on. I understand he did some cool stuff overseas, but he's just anti-liberal. He doesn't care about helping people. This freaking Glenn Greenwald. He sounds like such a dumbass in American politics. Like, I don't know if he actually cares about helping people or if he cares about being the deviant force. He cares about being the person who calls out everything. Both parties are bad. The entire system's corrupt. Wow, progressives aren't revolutionary enough. You guys don't even care about getting progressive politics. That's all he does all the time, dude. He's the Tom MacDonald of. I'm gonna use Tom MacDonald for everything now. That freaking corny ass rapper for all these comparisons, but it's annoying. Please drop a like onto the stream. Get me kicked up in the algorithm. You know.
Opportunity to strike a blow.
Yeah,
against
it's a big reality show. They don't have enough promo money, I guess.
Wall Street and the massive inequality and suffering that it causes. You don't have the right to refuse to do that because you're like angry and irritated by one of your colleagues. That's not what you're there for. That's like what high school is for. So I do want to just note, I believe that she was like genuinely alarmed by what happened, but it's time for her to move past that.
I agree. It's like she's being hyperbolic around this issue to cover.
Working with Nancy Pelosi, good thing. Or no, my bad. Working with white supremacists, good thing. Working with Ted Cruz, good thing. Working with corporate Democrats, how dare you?
For her failure of forced to vote. She wants so desperately to change the subject, and I think she has. And her enablers in the media at The Intercept will help her change the subject. And
her
will
enablers
also
at The
help her
Intercept
change the subject to be about my personality and
nobody's
my choice
talking
of,
about your
swear
damn
words instead of
personality,
them
dude.
actually abandoning
Stop
people
crying.
and literally killing them by not giving them health care.
AOC is literally killing you because she won't give you health care.
The government denies people health care. That's the effect of killing them. And if you're not even going to fight for it, again, everything AOC ever said in her life, I used against her. It wasn't my words. It was hers. If you're not seeing fighting for something, no wonder half the country doesn't vote. She said all that stuff. So I was also stunned that when she went on the Intercepted podcast with Jeremy Scahill to talk about this.
Okay, just because it's not smart to force through a vote for a policy that isn't popular Just because in that one instance, I made an argument that Medicare for All wasn't as popular as people were saying, doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything that people might deem unpopular with politics in general. Like I was saying, there's political capital. Some political capital is going to need to be spent on primary and corporate Democrats, but you don't just have an infinite amount of political capital to force a vote, to force Medicare for All vote, to force a Green New Deal vote, to force a primary competition against every Democrat in the country. Against every freaking Democrat. If you noticed, the Justice Democrats endorsed a much fewer number of people in 2020 than they endorsed in 2018. There's political power. It runs out. You can't just do whatever the hell you want. There's different nuances to it. And people love to strawman my positions on it.
It was obviously set up to do a softball. He didn't know how to do a follow-up question. Did they not teach people how to do follow-up questions when you were at the Intercept, or is that against the rules?
I mean, look, Jeremy's a great journalist. He really is. You know, like there's no degrading Jeremy's journalism. He's been all over the world, like covering wars.
I can degrade that interview.
Like the CNN, embedding with like the military, but like going to the places that are super dangerous to tell the real story about what the U.S. is doing. So I give him a huge like pass on what he does. That said, people on the left haven't.
You can be good, for example, at foreign policy reporting or foreign relations reporting or whatever, like Glenn Greenwald is, and be an absolute dumbass when it comes to domestic issues. It's completely possible.
Had much to cheer about in a long time watching American politics. They lived through Clintons, they lived through Bush and Cheney, they lived through Obama and the neoliberal nightmare that was, and then Donald Trump. And so when AOC and this kind of seemingly left-wing wing of the Democratic Party arose and she became this huge thing, I understand that people place their hopes in them. I genuinely get that. I think it's valid. And
you are doing that. I am not placing my hope in her. I am not placing all of my hope in AOC. That's why I'm not for something like force to vote, because I don't think inside politics is going to get done what we need to get done. Like, you are the ones doing that. You are thinking the end-all be-all is the inside politics. I don't believe that. I don't believe electoral politics is going to create change. I believe it's a process that's a part of creating change, but it's not going to make it happen. You can't just put a politician up there and expect them to be able to bring the whole world down. That's not how freaking life, it's not how any of this works. Like, these are the people who are, like, they're literally so contradictory, and they're projecting so much in this.
I want to find hope and optimism in like the political system that you cover. But at some point,
AOC isn't delaying Medicare for All. She's helping Medicare for All by not doing a dumbass strategy.
I'm not talking about Jeremy here. I'm talking about just journalism.
She does not have blood on her hands. If you think that, you are literally dumb. You should leave this channel because it's not going to work out.
Generally, who like the squad, who like
I'm
AOC.
sorry. I don't want to be like one of those people. I respect your opinion, and your opinion is really dumb. Not you. You are smart. You are a considerate human being that is having a debate internally about this idea, and I believe you are going to be very talented, and you're going to be something really good someday. And it's just this one opinion about you. This one opinion is really, really dumb. I don't know how it happened, but it did happen. But I respect you for it and being able to bring out that opinion. Like, it takes a lot of confidence to bring out such a dumb opinion into public and to say it. And I really respect you for that.
You have to still realize that they are politicians subject to all of the same political forces that every other politician is, and that your role can't be to cheerlead for them or engage in activism for them or be their spokesperson. If you want to go do that, go work for them as their spokesperson. If you're supportive of that political cause that they said that they were there to fight for, you have an extra obligation to push them and to treat them with a critical distance. That's the only way that they're going to do the things that are hard to do, is if they're being pushed instead of constantly showered with adoration over nothing.
Yeah, and it's sad that I know that, and that some kind of award-winning journalist like Jeremy Scahill doesn't know that. That's well, of course he does, and he chose to do that on purpose, which is disgusting. So, and an asshole like me can do a better job on force to vote.
Oh my God,
than guys like that. Then that's what's wrong with America. That's why America is broken.
This is why America's broken.
That's because we have nothing.
Twitter
no
fights.
real journalism happening.
No
in
real
America.
journalism.
It's all access journalism.
Access
it's all
journalism.
in defense of the establishment.
Defending the establishment.
Intercept,
Intercept
that's what I just
pussies.
experienced. So it was disgusting.
Disgusting.
So,
I'm mad.
And honest,
I'm angry.
I
I'm
like to have
Dore.
heroes in journalism. You and Chris Hedges are about the last ones.
I'm crying.
That's about it. That are consistent. All I'm asking, as George Carlin would say, consistency. You have to be consistent. And that was from my favorite comedian, and that's what I look for in my favorite journalist.
Oh boy. Hot takes from Jimmy Dore on this Sunday morning. Everybody say amen.